Use the graph of y equals sine theta below to sketch the graphs of the following modifications. In this video, we're going to discuss amplitude and period and how number placement in your trig function affects the graph of it. We have discussed how to generate the sine curve from our unit circle in previous videos. Sine of 0 is 0, sine of pi over 2 is 1, sine of pi is 0, sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1, and sine of 2 pi is 0. So your sine curve just oscillates in this fashion over and over. And this is the sine curve without any bells or whistles, so to speak. The moment you start putting different numbers in, for example, if you put in a lead coefficient of 3, it takes the peaks and valleys from your original graph, like sine of pi over 2 is equal to 1, but if you multiply that by 3, it stretches your value from 1 up to 3. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1. When you multiply by 3, that takes it down to -3. So a lead coefficient affects the vertical height of your graph. This is called an amplitude. Amplitude is defined as half of the distance from the maximum value to the minimum value. From 3 to -3, you have to travel 6 units. So half of that distance is 3, and that's how you calculate amplitude. You can look at the lead number. The absolute value of that lead coefficient is your amplitude, but the definition, to be technical, is half the distance from the max to the min. If we place a number in front of the angle, like a 2, and we leave the lead coefficient as 1, we don't change the height of it. This graph will still have peaks and valleys at 1 and -1. So that part of it is not changed. What changes when you double up an angle is you affect the oscillation speed. If you take your sine graph, the one at the very top, and you double its oscillation speed, that means you have to go through a hill and valley twice. In the normal time, it only takes it to do one oscillation. So back up here on the original graph, there's one total oscillation from 0 to 2 pi. If you double that oscillation speed, you go through 2 waves in the time it normally takes 1. Now what that does as far as period is concerned is one cycle terminates at pi. In order to calculate this, you take 2 pi, which is the normal period for your sine curve, and when you have double speed, that cuts your oscillation in half. So it's 2 pi divided by theta's coefficient. The 2's will cancel, and so pi tells you the horizontal distance to complete one cycle. And that's basically what the period of a sine or a cosine graph is. Even tangent is the horizontal distance required for one complete oscillation. Now let's investigate the cosine curve. Again, those were done in previous videos using the unit circle. Let's also discuss what happens amplitude and period for the cosine curve. If we look below, we have y equals 4 cosine theta. That just means that any value of cosine from the original graph, the y-coordinate will be multiplied by 4, causing a vertical stretch. The top of a cosine curve has a y value or a function value of 1. When you multiply by 4, that stretches it up from 1 to 4. The bottom of the graph at, say, pi, cosine of pi is -1. When you multiply by 4, you get -4. And so that affects the bottom of the cosine curve. Amplitude is half the distance from the max to the min, so 4 to negative 4 is 8 units. Cut that in half, you get 4. Doubling our angle, but leaving the amplitude alone, we're going to go back to a peak of 1, a minimum of negative 1. That's because the lead coefficient is 1. Doubling our angle doubles the oscillation speed, which cuts the horizontal distance in half. So instead of taking 2 pi to get a cycle done, it only takes 1 pi. So this 2 theta, that means we get 2 oscillations done in the time it normally takes to get 1 done, essentially cutting your oscillation time down to pi. Some more modifications we look at is we have vertical translations. That's if a number is added or subtracted to or from your trig function. Again, at the very top, we have the basic sine curve, and I just pointed out some key points of those quadrant angles for our sine value. Now, if we take this sine value, or sine curve, if we take our sine curve and we add 2 to all these little dots, we shift the graph up 2 units. So where 0 is normally a function value, when you add 2, you move that 0 up to 2. 1 plus 2, that shifts it up to 3. 0 plus 2 is 2. Negative 2 plus 2, or excuse me, negative 1 plus 2 is 1. And 0 plus 2 is 0. Your graph has been shifted up 2 units. So the 2 is basically your new x-axis. The sine curve oscillates with respect to 2 units up from the x-axis. Let's go back and revisit amplitude and period. A lead coefficient of 3 tells us that our amplitude is 3, because the absolute value of the lead coefficient, that's your amplitude. If there's a coefficient of your angle, if it's greater than 1, it speeds up the oscillation. If it's less than 1, it slows down the oscillation. Okay, so amplitude of 3, period of 2 pi over 2, which is pi. That tells us where one oscillation will quit. Sine is a series of hills and valleys. Because of the 2 theta, we oscillate twice in the time it normally takes to do 1. Cutting the oscillation period in half. So instead of taking 2 pi, it only takes 1 pi. That is the cutoff for one oscillation. If you go another pi, you get another full oscillation. The amplitude of 3 tells us where our max and min will be located. Back to our cosine curve, let's look at a lead coefficient of negative 2. And let's see how that affects our graph. Okay, so if we take our cosine curve and we pick out a few angles and their function values, like cosine of 0 is 1, cosine of pi over 2 is 0, cosine of pi is negative 1. If we take those values at these marked off angles and we multiply them by negative 2, we get a vertical stretch of 2. So instead of 1 and negative 1 being the max and min, we have 2 and negative 2 as the max and min. Also, by negating, you flip the graph with respect to the x-axis. It's a reflection. Up here at the top, where we had cosine of 0 is equal to 1, if you multiply that by -2, your 1 down here at the bottom shifts down or reflects to a -2. 0 doesn't go anywhere. 0 times -2 is still 0, so that place stays the same. -1 times -2 is +2. 0 times -2 stays the same. And then at 2 pi, cosine is back to 1 times -2, takes us down to -2. So basically, take your function values at these key angles, multiply them by -2, and it reflects and stretches. The graph is twice as tall, but it's upside down. At the very bottom, we have the example y equals -1 plus cosine 2 theta. This -1 is a vertical translation down 1 unit. 2 theta tells us to double our oscillation speed, which cuts our period in half. So the amplitude, there's still an unwritten 1, but that doesn't change the amplitude. It stays 1. Okay, so we take a cosine curve, double its oscillation speed. That's two oscillations with respect to where it normally would be 1. The period of pi, that just marks where an oscillation stops. Another pi units would be 2 pi. That's why we get 2 oscillations instead of 1. Shifting down 1 unit puts -1 as our quote new x-axis, and our graph remains symmetric after the shift down. Okay, so for summary, for functions of sine and cosine, and I just put generic equations up here at the top, the absolute value of A is your amplitude. That's half the distance from the max to the min. 2 pi over b, which is the coefficient of your angle, is the period. That's the horizontal distance that it takes to complete one cycle. What we'll do in the next video is something called phase shift. We haven't done that yet, but it's a horizontal shift. That's when you set the entire angle equal to 0 and solve for x or theta, depending on your function. And that'll tell you where to start the oscillation. Adding period tells you where to stop the oscillation. We'll get into that in more detail. If a constant is added or subtracted to your sine or cosine function, then that's a vertical translation, and you'll shift your graph up or down depending on the sign of that constant d. We also, in class, we did some unit circle practice, a little bit of review. I want to review some of that. Hopefully, if you're going on to calculus, you're going to memorize as much of that unit circle as possible. I promise it will pay big dividends later. You don't have to do it all in one day. In class, I showed you little tips on how to learn the first quadrant and then just expand that into the other 3. If you go to 120 degrees and you look at your y coordinate on the unit circle, what's the y value at 120 degrees? That's correct. Go to 300 degrees on your unit circle. What's your x coordinate? That's right, 1/2. At 270, what's the y coordinate divided by the x coordinate? -1 over 0 is, that's right, undefined. Good job. We also did some translations where we marked both degrees and radians on the unit circle. 150 degrees, when you find that angle, what's the equivalent radian measurement? Now, what I do is whenever I told you guys in class to look at quadrant 1 and do expansions, I know that 150 degrees is 5 30-degree movements. 30 degrees is pi over 6 radians, so if you do 5 of those, you have 5 pi over 6 radians. If you can learn quadrant 1, the rest of it's multiples as far as your angles are concerned. 315 degrees, that is 7 45-degree movements. 45 degrees is pi over 4, so we'll have 7 of those angle movements, progressions. 60 degrees, that's quad 1. That one is pi over 3. Now, don't forget the old school way to translate. If you haven't quite got your unit circle under control, you can multiply all of these by pi over 180 degrees. That was how we translated them initially in class. I hope this video has helped out. Reach out by phone or email, ask in class if we have class together, and I'll do my best to help you out.